Hello, 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 everyone. We're live from Nairobi this time. Happy to have everyone here. Excited about today's session. Excited to be back from our summer break and coming with more content, coming with new guests, and looking forward to having discussions every other week. So let's just jump into the program. So we're here again to talk about our scale framework with live examples. So quickly, we'll take you through the framework itself. And then we have a live example with our special guest today, whom I will introduce shortly. So if we can move on to the agenda for today. Welcome everyone again from wherever you're dialing in from, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on YouTube. We're happy to see you. We're happy to discuss. We're happy to push further for Africa's future. A bit about myself. My name is Adeolu Adewumi-Zer. If we can move on to the next slide, I have been a CEO for the last 5 years. I'm a founder myself. The last couple of years, before then, was the CEO of a corporate subsidiary in Nigeria. Before then, strategic investor for 3.5 years. So I've spent 20 plus years in multinationals like we want to become. I've invested for those same multinationals, and I've run a multinational subsidiary. And then I also developed the scale framework, which we'll go through today for Zer. And the most important piece, and I hope people will share this with me, is that I myself am an Afro-optimist. Now, if we move to the framework itself, so we started out with a questionnaire. If you had gone through the sign up, there were a few questions where we asked about what do you hope to gain from our masterclass and which topic do you want to focus on. It's always interesting data to see how those things shift from week to week. And then if we move on to the scale framework itself, the scale framework is a 5-step roadmap, a 5-pillar roadmap to building sustainable businesses in Africa. Next slide, please. Where we are focused on transformation rather than simply getting money and getting capital. So using this framework, we're looking for African businesses, and we're supporting African businesses to feel empowered to turn your business visions into reality. Visions are nice, reality is better. So looking at the scale framework itself, it's 5 pillars. The first one being S, so it's spelling out SEALE. So strategize your vision, talking about how to really put your vision into action. Next, we move on to C, which is champion excellence, whether we're talking about excellence at the top, excellence in your leadership team, excellence in your talent and in your teams. Next one we have is accelerating your leadership, which is specifically talking about your own leadership and also the leadership team and that you surround yourself with. And how do you, because when leadership starts at the top, what do you do to make sure that that leadership is excellent and exceptional? Moving on to L, which is leveraging governance for sustainable growth. And here we're looking at talk about sustainable businesses. We talk about businesses that we want to become multinationals. So we need to put transparent processes, structures, systems in place. So indeed that can happen. And then we finalize with E, which is expand your impact. That's looking at not just financial impact, but also social impact with partnerships and network, etc. Today, though, we are focusing on the C part of scale, champion excellence. And to help me do that, we've invited Iwalola Sobowale, who is the head of customer research at Moniepoint. And I've known Iwalola a couple years now, when she was actually one of my mentees from WIMBIZ, which is a women in business group based out of Nigeria. So that was before she had to join Moniepoint. That was before she even joined InterSwitch. So it's been wonderful to watch her journey from the time when we were formal mentor-mentees, but continuing that relationship even to today. So Iwalola, thank you for joining us. If you can come on stage, please.
Hi, thank you so much for that really warm welcome, Adeolu. And yes, it's been such a pleasure and honor, like knowing you, being even like a little part of your life. Um, just having conversations with you, even informal conversations, I learned so much. So it's like a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for taking the time. We learn from each other, so I appreciate that. Now, let's just jump right into it, Iwalola. So we've heard a bit already, a little taste. And I know looking at your LinkedIn profile that you actually started out as a lawyer, not just
Mhm.
studied law, which many Nigerians children tend to do, but you actually practiced law. And
Yeah.
somehow you went from that, dabbled in insurance a bit, and then ended up in fintech. Tell us a bit about how that even happened.
Yeah, it's always interesting reflecting on that. And I sometimes can feel like those moments and how they've basically come into this moment in time. But yes, I studied law, admittedly, slightly against my will. My dad is a lawyer, so he wanted like all of his kids to study law. And I mean, in hindsight, now I see how valuable that is. But if I had been allowed to follow my passion, I would be something out of Grey's Anatomy, running through hospitals, saving lives. Yes, I've always
A
been.
noble profession.
I beg your pardon?
Also a very noble profession.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it's in hindsight now, like I said, studying law has been extremely valuable for me. And I think in general, it's like the process of studying law and the process of practicing law teaches you so many skills that you can apply in any aspect of life that you're in. So why did I leave law? Again, it wasn't particularly my passion, and I've always been driven by the need to make impact. And that's not to say I wasn't making any impact in my profession as a lawyer, but it was the practice was debt recovery and insolvency, basically recovering funds for banks. And yes, we see the money coming in or coming back in, but I didn't feel like I was doing anything particularly useful. So I decided to follow my intuition and basically take on any opportunities that seemed exciting or like made me think or drove like any kind of curiosity for me. And that's how I got into insurance. And partly another reason why I took that role was I've always had this feeling like I was just really terrible at sales. But then, I mean, you hear that sales is one of the best skills to have as a person. Like, you don't have to be a salesperson to be able to utilize that skill for yourself, right? So I basically put myself in a tough position, took that role, had a really great boss at the time who really held my hand through things. Before I knew it, I was leading a team in that region. It was interesting, and I realized that it's all about working with people, finding out the need that people have, so like the customers, and then showing them how the solution you have solves the need that they have. And long story short, that's what I do today. In financial services, in my role presently, we are discovering needs. We discover that, oh, people have this problem, and we're helping them find the solution to that problem.
So discovering what the need is. I like the need rather than problem. Discovering
Mm.
what the need is and
Yeah,
finding the solution. So that takes
exactly.
us right to the sort of elephant in the room, money point.
Mhm.
They have become the giant, one of the giants on the African continent in fintech. And here today we want to talk about champion excellence, and we can see that MoneyPoint is doing. And I'm a MoneyPoint customer myself. You brought me in, right? So, and I've really loved being a MoneyPoint customer this past year. So just give us a glimpse. And I talk you guys up even outside. So not just saying it because you're with us today, but give us a glimpse into the sort of raw customer insights that MoneyPoint takes and how you really translate them into real business insights.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things I would say that we've had to do, and then I'll talk about something more specific. But it's essentially creating processes. It's a big organization. It's not just two people making decisions on things that have to happen. So we've had to create processes. What does that mean? It means that any data that we collect, we make sure that that's useful for us and that we're able to make decisions clearly from the data. We've built fantastic data analysis teams. I definitely cannot take responsibility for all the strides that Moniepoint is making. We have data engineers who ensure that every single piece of data that we come in is properly structured, cleaned. The data analysts are able to help us answer business questions with the data that we have. We also make sure that every product team has a business line leader who ensures that the context from the top, trickles down into every single decision that's made on a product level. So as you can see, there are so many moving parts here, and I think that our executive leadership is amazing at this. One thing I've observed is how valuable, or how much importance our executive leaders place on ensuring that decisions are not just made on a whim, or just because we need to do that, but because we've decided that, oh, we've observed this, or we've seen from this data that we need to make this decision and this is the benefit it's going to make. We usually do hey, we want to see that there's return on every decision that we make, and all those processes ensure that this happens. So in terms of research, which my team is responsible for, I would say that a couple of things happen. So of course, there's the processes. We have routine studies that we carry out. I would mention one of them, which I think a lot of people know already, is Net Promoter Score (NPS), CSAT. Basically, we collect feedback from customers in various ways, and applying that feedback from the customer in addition to all the data that we know or have about the customer. So for instance, if a customer tells us, oh, I had a really terrible experience with this particular flow or screen or something, we're able to, with the data that we have, go and see, okay, what exactly happened. We might need to like replay that session. We might need to see, okay, is it as a result of something that happened when they signed up? Is it as a result of the device that they have? So that's kind of some of the data that we have that we're able to use to help make decisions. So there's that.
Mhm.
But then another thing I'll say is we are particularly scrappy. So if we
Okay.
realize
Scrap
that,
that
yeah,
word.
yeah, we're
Okay.
particularly scrappy. So if we realize that, okay, maybe we need to carry out this a specific maybe there's a business problem. We notice that maybe for a specific segment of customers, we are, I don't know, maybe particular those this particular segment of customers is not having a good experience with us, right? And that's a business problem for us because we want these customers to have a good experience with us. We want them to stay. The longer a customer stays with us, for anyone who understands metrics like customer acquisition, you know that it costs a lot
Mhm.
to acquire customers. It's
Yeah.
best to keep them satisfied. It's best to hold on tight to that one customer, instead of allowing them to have a terrible experience, not doing anything about it. The customer churns, and then you're just spending so much money trying to acquire new customers. So we really are intentional about retention. So what was I saying? Backtrack. Oh yes. So those are some of the key things that we keep a lookout for, and I kind of call them the pillars of the research practice that we have at Moniepoint. So there's retention, there's growth, and there's validation. So either we're trying to validate a problem, how big a problem is this? It sometimes, and Adeolu can also speak on this, we get feedback from just one person that makes us do a deep dive into that whole process. So I'm talking about this because Adeolu had a particularly a bad experience when I think it was when she first signed up on Moniepoint, and the
Yeah.
feedback that she gave me made me work with one of our teams, do a deep dive to understand what exactly caused this problem here, and then we're able to fix it. Now, when we see that there's this problem, and like I said, sometimes it could just be one person, one customer who gives this feedback, or one customer that we observe has this bad experience, we do a deep dive to figure out how big of a problem is this for our customers. That could involve qualitative interviews, for instance, in-depth interviews with other customers who may be in the same shoes. It could be just going through our data, trying to pinpoint how many customers experience this, or is it that only customers who use a specific kind of device or who signed up on a specific in a specific period are experiencing these issues. And when we're able to see how big of a problem this is, we're able to prioritize it, because best believe there are so many problems. So many needs. We have to prioritize what's most important, what's going to bring the most return on investment. What's like a, sometimes it could be, oh, we just have two engineers on this team. They're run ragged. We need a quick win. Okay, let's quickly solve this or quickly build this feature. So there's so many things that go into it. There's so many moving parts. But I hope that I've been able to explain what kind of goes into this whole process.
No, you definitely have, and I will come. I'll dig into this because just let me just pause right here and let the audience know that we jumped into our questions here. The discussion's already going, but please already drop your questions. Those questions will come up on the screen, and we'll answer them as they come in. In the meantime, we'll showcase the assessment, our skill assessment, which you can also take as we're having the discussion. Now, coming back to what you were saying, so you talked about processes, you talked about data analytic teams, engineers, researchers, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm sure most of the listeners will say, well, but I don't have access to all of this. Okay, that's one point. Now let's come down to reality, to my reality. So how do you build that research culture from scratch? And what can founders who don't have the kind of budget that Moniepoint do to already build a data-driven, customer-centered, because that's very important, a customer-centered culture.
Yeah, so I would say there are three things, and somehow I always have three things. So I feel like people would
Three
point
is a
this
good
out.
number.
I always have three things. Sorry?
Three is a good number.
Yeah, awesome, right? So there are three things that I think every founder or anyone who's in this space would need to nurture within their teams. One is empathy, the other is curiosity, and finally structure and or processes. Now, what does this
So
mean?
empathy, maybe let's just repeat for folks. So empathy,
Yes, empathy, curiosity, and structure.
curiosity, structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll kind of
So
try
maybe
and break this down.
so everyone can see it. So empathy, curiosity, and structure. All right.
So let me tell a little bit of a story without naming names, but we've heard like a specific feedback about out money points, for instance. Customers kept saying this specific thing. I'm not going to say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We've had so many conversations with business leads, with our engineering managers, like what is the cause of this? What data do we have? Like we'll talk to customers and it's almost like we hear the word, but we don't understand what this particularly means for the customer. Now, the reason why that was the case was because we couldn't put ourselves in the shoes of these customers. And that's what empathy does. And the way we solved this problem was by taking our engineers, like I literally held our engineers, our designers,
Mm-hmm.
and we went into the field and we sat with customers for a day. And best believe
Wow.
at the end of the day, we had the answer to the problem. That is essentially empathy. Empathy means being able to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Sometimes it involves experiencing the same things they're experiencing, not necessarily just listening to them. And for any founders who don't have, the resources for like in a team, like a full-fledged research team or anything like that, all it means is you're ensuring that your engineers or anyone who works in your business, right, is as close to the customers as possible. I've heard of a food delivery platform in Nigeria, a big name. I won't say their name just because I don't know if this is something they want to
Okay.
put out there. But
Mm-hmm.
I heard that one thing they do whenever they onboard new employees is they ensure that every single new employee has to deliver food from their platform for the first 1 week. And that's part of their onboarding process.
Wow.
Whether you
Every
are,
single. Okay.
sorry?
Now go ahead, please. Please
Oh,
go
yeah.
ahead.
So whether you are a lawyer, you're coming to lead their legal team, or you're an engineer, whatever it is, you have to deliver food to customers. And what that does is everyone is able to put themselves in the shoes of the customers. Everyone is going to understand how if a customer is calling, screaming, and saying, "Oh, I've not been able to get my food," or whatever, you understand how big of a pain this is. You are motivated you to solve that problem as creatively as possible. that's what empathy does. So as a founder, figure out what that means for you. It could be getting your team to listen in on customer support calls, or even take customer support calls once in a while. Or it could just be going out into the field, you as the founder dedicating, maybe you could call it an empathy week every quarter, dedicating that week, and you're saying, we're going to spend time with customers this week. You will be shocked at how much problems that you've not been able to understand how to solve, you will be able to, suddenly the solution becomes so clear, or you would find so many more opportunities that translate to solving customers' needs. So that's empathy. The other is curiosity.
So that's a good one, Iwalola, because we actually did that in one of my previous companies, right?
Okay.
So there would be customer service week, which I think was in October, and so that week, all the leadership was tasked to become customer service reps, and we would
Yeah.
actually man the phones for
Wow.
a day or so, myself included as the CEO. So and I thought that was really great. Uh, I'm sure people were a bit surprised to hear me on the phone, but it really made me get closer to what our clients and customers were dealing with. So fully support. I don't know if I would want to be out in the field selling, but there are definitely ways, I agree, to make sure that everyone in the organization gets closer to the customer. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so
Yeah.
empathy, and now we move on to curiosity.
Yes. And then for curiosity now, you've created this process for your team to build empathy with the customers, right? But what happens when people hear something and they're not particularly driven to like try and fix it? It just means that you're hearing so many things, you have so many opportunities that are just sitting on the table. Curiosity is something that I don't necessarily think it can be taught, but it can be built. I think that people can build curiosity. I just don't know if you can particularly teach people how to be curious. I feel like it's an innate thing. You see a child that's curious, and you just know they're asking a billion questions, right?
That was me. That was me.
Exactly. So
I still ask a billion questions. Nothing's changed.
exactly. And one of the things for growth to happen, basically, you have to put yourself in, you have to be in a position where you know that you don't know everything. Like you can only learn when you know that there's something for you to learn. If your mind is blocked, your ears are blocked, you're hearing, but you're not particularly perceiving or understanding what's being said. So what this means essentially is when hiring for your team, ensure that you're hiring people who go beyond the surface. They don't just hear A and just do A. They hear A, they
Mm,
want to know why, they want to know how, they want to know
mm,
when. They are digging
mm,
deeper. Because if you stick
mm.
to the surface, you will literally forever just be on the surface. You won't get deeper to understanding the root cause, to understanding if there are more opportunities here. So curiosity is essentially, when you're building your team, ensure that the people you're bringing on your team, they're not just rule followers, they're not just doing everything you want to do. And I know there's this culture in Nigeria, we call it Oga-driven development. And I know there's a term that like Americans use. Yeah, I've heard a lot of product, like American product managers use this term, but for some reason it skipped my mind. But
Okay.
basically, it's when your leaders just tell you, oh yeah, let's build this because this competitor has built it. What if that's actually not a specific need that your customers actually need? So you're just building it just to fulfill all righteousness. But if you have a team that's curious, they might be able to tell you that we don't particularly need this. Here's data to support why this is not as important for us. This is what's more important right now. Here's data to support this. Here's some recordings of customers calling and screaming on the phone to our customer support. This is what we're going to. This is what's going to. This is the value we're going to gain as an organization if we go this way instead. So that's curiosity. And then the final one is structure. Now, if you have empathy, you have curiosity. So you're hearing so a lot from customers, you're understanding the needs of customers. You have people who are digging deep to understand the root cause, to try and figure out the best way to solve the problem. If there's no structure, if there's no way where when you have a customer insight and you decide, okay, this is what we're going to build on, what next? You have to have a proper structure internally for what happens next. Another reason why is you I think every founder can also agree with this. You probably have a million and one problems you're trying to solve every day. If
Yep.
you store everything in your mind, you are going to forget. You are not going to remember why it's so important. You would get overtaken by other events. There needs to be a way where you decide how important is it for us to go this way right now. How much resources should I put behind going this way right now? What are we focusing on and what are we not focusing on? How do I disseminate this down to every single person in my team so that it's not just the executives who know what we're trying to do? Every single person needs to understand we're working towards this goal. And I mean, Adeolu, as a CEO, you would understand. I'm sure you totally get what I'm trying to say. It's one thing for the executives to have the vision, know the strategy. It's another for that to be communicated to the entire team and the entire
Mhm.
organization. And that's what structure does.
Okay, so we talked about empathy, putting yourself in the shoe of the customer,
Mm-hmm.
and not just theoretically, but actually
Mm-hmm.
finding a way to get the team closer to the customer and get them on the ground, so to say. We talked about curiosity, which is about, well, you talked about building versus teaching, which
Mm-hmm.
is actually something that I've had a number of discussions about recently because I had underestimated it, or I had just been recently realizing the importance of curiosity. I myself am just a naturally curious person.
Mm-hmm.
So it puzzles me when I meet people who don't ask any questions and just accept. It's like, how can you just accept? No
Mm-hmm.
matter who is telling you, how can you just accept? And then,
Mm-hmm.
of course, structure, which is all about focus. And, they say strategy is what you say no to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think those are great tidbits. Again, we're going through the discussion. We're talking about championing excellence. We are here with Iwalola Sobowale, head of customer research at Moniepoint. But you're free to ask your questions. This is meant to be an open session. Uh, don't just listen to us, but I'm sure there are questions that you have about how to really champion customer excellence within your organization. Let's get those questions coming. Okay, good. So let's talk about sort of maybe a sensitive subject for both, right? For some, so we say sometimes customer is king or the customer is queen, but there's been sort of like the flip side where the customer doesn't always know the right. I don't remember who it was who said that if you had asked back in the day, if Henry Ford had asked back in the day, what do the customers want? They would have said faster horses, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't imagine what a car might look like. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you balance that? The customer is telling you one thing, but you know that there's actually something transformational that you could do. How do you balance those two?
Yeah. So I would step back a little bit and say that research is not asking customers what they want. Research is understanding your customers. Just like you said, if you ask people what they want, it's just like children. If you say, kids, what would you like today? Give me more sugar.
Yeah.
That's what they will tell you. That's what makes
Mhm.
them happy, right? But for them to be happy in the long term, you have to give them a fully balanced diet. You need to make sure they go outside to play. It's understanding their needs. You understand your children's needs, not just saying, okay, I'm going to give you what you want. Although I would say in the industry that we work in, sometimes giving people what they want is also a good way to go. It's a sprinkle of what you want and what you need, right? I would say probably like 80-20%.
You want a little bit of chocolate, right, with all the veggies.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So I would say, how do we ensure that it's not just what customers want? It's about, and I think essentially what your question alludes to is, if what customers want is not directly within like our strategy, right? How do we
Mhm.
navigate that? And then also, if we know that what customers want is not particularly going to, be transformational or innovative, what do we do in that instance? And I would say the answer to this is by the quality of people that are in the room when decisions like this are being made. um, if you think about it, the people who know the the people who know what technology can do are the engineers, right? Now, if you ask me, I'll probably say, yeah, I can do this with AI and do that with AI. But the people who built it will tell me that what I've built is going to change the world. I probably
Mm.
only know 1% of the use case. So it's important when decisions like this are being made for those people who understand the technology, who understand the limitations, who understand the extent to which it can go are in the room. Engineers are fantastic at innovation. They know what they can do with technology. They are not necessarily so fantastic at understanding the customer needs, which is
Yeah.
why founders need to build that culture of putting their teams as close to the customers as possible, ensuring that they have empathy for the customers, and that if you're a curious person, if you're an engineer who obviously is amazing at the work you do, you're curious about the needs of customers, you understand the needs of customers, there's a structure in place for you to know what to do next. What is stopping you? Virtually nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. We have our first question, Iwalola. Thank you for your response there. So the Nigerian culture respect is already relating to the cultural element, which is of course big in any country, in any continent, but can be sometimes even bigger in this part of the world. Nigerian culture respects in silence battles with the freedoms of curiosity. So how can leaders adapt learnings in a highly cultural environment, blending different cultural backgrounds towards a curiously designed business focus? You touched a bit already on that, right? I guess we can dig into it a bit more. Simply put, how does research play into the limits of what you're allowed to discover, aligning with the context of culture and traditions? It's like an
Okay.
exam question.
Yeah, right. Great question, to be honest. And I will talk about an instance. So I worked at Transion a few years ago. For anyone who doesn't know, Transion owns Techno, Infinix, Oraimo. Their sister company owns Palmpay. So a lot of those, I think Infinix, I mentioned that, Cynix, there are a couple of brands under the name. Now, it's a Chinese company, and just like Nigerians, Chinese people are very traditional. They have their
Mhm.
cultural values and beliefs. They know they have ways of doing things, and respect is very important. Structure, like hierarchy as well, in the organization was very important. How do you balance that? I think in this for this particular kind of scenario, it's a top-down require. Like, it's the executives who need to determine this. If you do not create a culture within your organization where even your, like, the lowest person, for lack of a better word, is able to come to you and or offer suggestions or even bring to you insight or information that's relevant to you, I just don't think you're ready to succeed. I just don't think as a leader you are. So I would say this is a responsibility of the leadership of any organization. Transion did this, and they did this by ensuring that they had processes. So we would carry out studies, we would share insights with the product teams. All this would go from one step to the other until it gets to the head of the R&D department. There were instances where we would have them coming in from China to literally go into the field with us. No matter how cultural or traditional your beliefs are, if you don't create a system where there isn't a lot of there's a word for it, there isn't a lot of the word has is failing to come to mind right now. But you need to create a structure where there aren't too many roadblocks to hear
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
people in your organization. Then you're just not ready to succeed.
Yeah, and I think you're completely right. It has to come from the top,
Mhm,
right? So, uh, in many cultures, Nigeria is not the only one. As you pointed out, it can be very hierarchical. So, what are we doing as leaders to push against tradition
mhm,
and to allow people the psychological safety? I guess that's the word they use now, to know that they can speak their mind. What are you saying? So, for example, I'll ask someone a question and I will verbally give them the permission to say, like, I'll ask them, should we do this? I mean, first of all, it's how you phrase it. It's like, do this. It's not do this. It's not, or we're doing this. It's should we do this?
mhm,
So you're asking their opinion.
mhm,
And sometimes when I see them hesitating, I'll say, you're allowed to say no. I mean, the answer can be no. You're the expert. So tell me, should we do this?
mhm,
And I see that that opens up the conversation a bit, right? And instead of thinking, oh, well, boss said this, So, and let me think of a way that we should do this. No, that's not why I'm asking you.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really up to us as leaders to push that culture of curiosity, or to allow a culture of curiosity within our organizations. Let me take an audience poll as we wait for questions to come in. So for our folks in the audience, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, you're hearing us talk about the importance of customers and championing excellence, not just in the workspace, but also with our customers. So I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. What's the biggest challenge you face when trying to truly understand your customers and their needs? Is it a lack of funds? Is it a lack of ideas around processes? Is it a lack of access? Or what is it? Drop your ideas in the chat. Let's see what ideas are coming in, and maybe we can even address some of these concerns and challenges as we go through the conversation. So again, we know that our customers are important. So what is your challenge in trying to make sure that our customers are in the center of everything we do? So while we're waiting for those comments to come in, we want to move back to Moniepoint. Everyone's always curious about Moniepoint. So you talked about a bit about this, and I hope, and it doesn't have to be Moniepoint. It can be a previous life, Interfitch, or what have you. So we want to get one of your aha moments, and hear concretely about it, as much information as you can give us. So you had you did some research, you found a need that a customer had, and there was a specific business solution that developed out of that research. Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. I think I'll talk about something that probably every Nigerian can relate to. So when you go to create a bank account, there are certain identification documents you need to provide. Typically, your driver's license, national ID, and things like that. All this is for compliance reasons. If accounts didn't have the details of the account holders, then anyone would just go and withdraw from any account, right? But then also to prevent fraud and money laundering, regulators are very strict about this, and this is the responsibility of everyone. We don't want funds getting into the hands of people who are going to misuse them, abuse them, and use them to, cause wreak havoc in the world, right? So as a result of that, you'd see that a lot of banks are very strict with their compliance requirements, which is expected. And so you would know that there are three tiers of KYC. No, KYC is know your customer. So there are three tiers of accounts that you can typically have in Nigeria. For your personal account, it's tier one. Usually, you would need to provide either your NIN or BVN. Tier two, you would provide some kind of address verification. Oh no, so tier two has NIN and BVN, and then tier three is um, an additional requirement, which is like your proof of address. So when we
Mm-hmm.
have these three things, you fall into tier three, and with a tier three account, you are allowed all the freedoms that the regulators allow us to give to you. So you can send as much as, I believe it's 5 million naira in one transaction. And if you want to increase that limit, you can do that through your banking app or whatever. So over the years, a big problem that we've seen, starting from my time in Fidelity Bank up till now, is you would see customers coming in. So perhaps they created an account with only their NIN, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a tier one account, and they would receive funds over the limit of that account. I believe tier one account limit is 50,000. So you can't receive more than 50,000 naira at a go with a tier one account. So if you do receive any funds above that amount, typically your account will be blocked. It's blocked because the regulators require us to put some forms of checks and balances. You then have to come into the bank and tell us, yes, I am aware that my account is at this level. I received these funds. And for me to be able to have access to the funds on my account, I'm going to provide this other additional documentation that the regulators require us to do. Now, this is an exceptionally terrible experience for customers. We see firsthand. We walk
I
in
can profess to that happened once.
yeah, it's an exceptionally terrible
The,
experience.
the bank accepted the money, but then blocked the account. It doesn't sit well.
Yeah, it's an exceptionally terrible experience. We know why we're doing it. If, as a bank, we don't do what we're supposed to do, we're going to be slammed with hefty fines. There's risk of our license being taken away. There's so many risks, but it's a compliance issue, and we just have to do what the regulators say. Now, the mindset behind this, if you think about it, for years and years has been, yeah, I mean, we can't do anything about it. That's what the regulators require us to do. But with a little
Mhm.
bit of creative thinking, with a little bit of engineering, we figure out a solution for that at Moniepoint. I'm not going to say what the solution is, but try it and see. Try it and see what the solution is. And
Now
you will
I'm
then,
very curious.
yeah. So receive funds that exceed your limits, and then you see the solution that we built.
I mean, to me, the simple solution is actually for the bank not to receive the funds, right? To not to allow the funds to be received. But I'll ask you offline what that
Yeah. So
solution
if
was.
now the reason why banks will not do that is they don't want to turn away funds. In fact, the longer your funds stay with us, the better. Think about it from like the business perspective, right? The banks they would want the money to stay in your account. In fact, if you can't have access to it, we're so sorry about the terrible experience. It's not our fault. It's CBN's fault. We have to do this. Either you provide us with the documentation or the money stays in this account forever. So the banks obviously gain from that, but we realize how important it is for our customers to have a good experience with us, not experience this kind of thing. It's more important to us than to just have the funds in our account in our bank.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it smacks of a bit of fraud. Not to go that far, but anyway, let's move on. So, I saw a question come up, so let's take the question before we move on to the next one. So, a question from Oluremi: All customers have preferences based on individuality. How do you balance what customers think they prefer and what they actually need? You touched a bit on that, but perhaps you can summarize what you said before.
Okay, so I think our question is essentially about personalization.
Mm,
Simply let me. A simple example is some people love dark mode on their devices. Some people love light mode. What did Apple do? They didn't say, "Oh, let's do a poll. How many people love light mode? How many people love dark mode?" Okay, 60% love dark mode. Because of that, all our devices are going to be in dark mode. Essentially, all they did was to give you options, and that's what
mm.
most
Optionality.
organizations would do. They will give you options, and then so there's a lot of segmentation that happens like with research. Typically you'll be able to segment the customers. This kind of customer has a specific kind of need, and then we'll provide solutions that meet this kind of need. This kind of customer has this specific kind of need, we'll provide solutions that meet this other kind of need.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. That's very simple. So talking about optionality, people like options. Another
Mhm.
question has popped up. Questions are starting to heat up. Okay, so in the startup ecosystem, technology rates supreme, but most of the society isn't technology efficient. So how can more startups replicate Moneypoint's model of penetration to technology adoption without really changing the culture of the users unless their cultures were changed? There's a high turnover of startups and technologies because people build solutions with no or low customer base required to support the business. And this question comes up, right? So everything is tech or tech enabled, etc. But how many people actually have access to that tech that we're lauding so much? And so then what I see is that many companies have to take a step back and come up with some kind of hybrid so that it looks tech, but actually in the background, they're doing a lot of manual work. But it would be great to hear your thoughts on this.
I I'm so excited by this question, and I need to know who this person is. Because a lot of this speaks to the high bets that startups are taking. It's just like with property, right? They say it's all about location, 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 right? That's like how you get the best property. Location, location, location. I think with startups as well, it's like literally making the right bets. Sometimes a couple of things have to happen for a moment in time to spark, and then suddenly your business blows, for lack of a better word. That's the word that we love to use as Nigerians. Now, for instance, regulators would have created certain policies that might seem restrictive, but to someone who's creative, who understands the market, would realize that, oh yeah, regulators have restricted this, but it means that by doing this, a customer need has emerged, which if we service this need, it could actually change culture. And I'll say, for instance, with Money Point, a couple of years ago, everyone goes to the ATM to get cash. You have to, like, it was not a, it was that literally was the only way to get cash, or you go to the bank. You go to the ATMs to get cash. Um, what happened that made this a ripe um position for Moniepoint to just strategically have been in at the exact moment in time? So many things happened. There was the banks trying to clamp down on money laundering and AML and CFT, basically trying to ensure that people are not storing a lot of naira in their homes or whatever, right? And as a result, banks put more limitations on how much cash you could get through on on a single day. You couldn't get more than 100,000 naira. Now, if you think about it, yes, this is a restriction. And yes, it means that as customers, what you're used to is no longer what you're able to do. But it was just the
Mhm.
perfect position for Moniepoint. Moniepoint had already existed, was already in the market, was already doing the work, but it was like location, location, location. Everything just
Mhm.
happened to click at the right time. They were already positioned. They had POS devices, and they're like, oh, people cannot go to the bank anymore. There is a need. How can we scale very quickly to meet this need? Honestly,
Mhm.
I don't want to say it's luck, but it's definitely not. It's a lot of strategic thinking. It's a lot of like taking big bets. I mean, any VC would probably say the same thing I'm saying. It's a lot of taking bets. So
I mean,
it's
they
an
say
easy.
luck, they
Sorry?
say luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I
Money
was just.
Point was prepared,
Mhm.
and the opportunity appeared.
Exactly.
So yes, timing is everything.
Mhm.
Good. So we're nearing the end of our session. I just have a couple questions, but please, if you're there in the audience, LinkedIn, YouTube, happy to hear more questions, to hear more thoughts. It's been a really interesting discussion. And now we're actually going to talk about your podcast, the Spotlight Podcast. You had me on as your guest last year. I'm so happy that we have you on as a guest this year. And you're always talking to different trailblazers in various industries where you have to get them to sort of open up to you. It's unlike this one, which is virtual. You're actually in the same space, and so it can be a bit more comfortable. And so you have to get them to open up to you, which I can imagine as in the customer research, it's also something similar. So how does being a customer researcher sort of feed into making you a better podcaster, and how does being a podcaster make you a better customer researcher
Yeah.
and a
So
better
it's. Sorry.
leader?
Oh yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship, and funny enough, I started the podcast because I found it hard to have. So I would define myself as an introvert. People don't tend to believe me, but yes, my battery runs out. Yes, there are many times when I don't want to talk to anyone, right? But I mean, in my role, I didn't particularly have a problem with that. Like when I was a little bit more junior in my career, because I mean, talking to customers just felt like, I mean, I was driven by my the need to make impact, and I love the work I do, right? But I started the podcast because I wanted to make myself more comfortable speaking with people in general, having like, let me say, uncomfortable conversations that were uncomfortable for me, but becoming more comfortable having conversations. And I tend to do this to myself, where I basically just put myself in a tough spot, and then I just have to like come out of it. So I put myself in that position. But what happened was interesting. Now, aside from me getting better at asking questions, I also got better
Mm,
at reading people, reading, oh, is
mm,
this person comfortable with this question I've asked? Do I need to ask this question in a different way? Should I backpedal right now? Can I dig a little bit deeper here? I'm reading your micro expressions, I'm reading your tone of voice. And for me, I'm someone who I do best when I have face-to-face conversations with people, because I find it so weird having conversations on the phone when I can't see your face. I don't know what you're thinking. Right? So this really helped me as a leader as well. If you To be able to manage a team, you need to understand what are those little nuances that are happening right now that might be causing this person to feel the way they are feeling. If I'm someone who's not particularly in touch with this, I might not notice that this person is uncomfortable. But through the skills I've gained hosting the podcast, I've gotten better asking questions, reading people, understanding when I can push a bit harder, understanding when I need to backpedal. Another thing it's helped is understanding that people have like different and nuanced perspectives about everything. And it's made me realize there's never just one way to look at things. In fact, there are like 1,001 ways to look at every single proposition
Mm,
in this world right
mm,
now. So having that also helps me in my role, because I may be looking at a business problem in one way. I may talk to someone on our engineering team and is looking at this problem in another way. I will talk to our one of our executives and they may be looking at this problem in another way. It's helped me understand that there can be balance. Two things can be right at the same time, and there's always a solution that can come out from the various nuanced perspectives. Maybe a couple more things I could mention in terms of the
mhm,
podcast. You just have to be resilient. So, like getting people to come on the podcast who don't know who you are, they are very busy people. Like you have to just reach out to them. I've gotten so much better at
mm,
like cold emails or taking opportunities. If I bump into anyone right now on the street and I happen to know them, and maybe I've forgotten their name, I'm immediately Googling and I'll be like, oh, yeah, it's this guy. Oh my God, I have this podcast. I would love to have you on podcast. This is why it will be great for you. This is why it will be great for me. You just get to pitch yourself a bit more. You get to be more resilient. You hear so many no's, but you just take it in stride. Some no's today may end up being like a maybe tomorrow, and then in a few days, a yes, right? So yeah, those are a couple of things that I've gained through the podcast that have also helped me in my roles.
I think that's excellent, and it's a great example of how you have created something to push you out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
right? So getting you to ask questions, getting you to be able to read other people, getting you to talk to people whom you may not normally want to talk to, even on the street, because you're thinking, oh, this might be a great guest. And it also gives you a reason to talk to them, because sometimes or many times people ask me, well, but I don't want to just send them an email or a WhatsApp or a LinkedIn request out of the blue. Like, what am
Yeah.
I going to say? And you have a reason to talk to them, because
Yes.
people want, they like the idea of having a platform where they can express themselves and express their ideas. So they would be open to hear about your podcast. In addition to that, another unique selling proposition, selling from a personal pitching point of view, is a book. And I hear that you have a book coming out soon. So if you're loving all these ideas that you're hearing from Iwalola today, a book coming out soon called Designing Usable Products for African Users. So getting away from all the experiences and tips and examples we have coming from the West,
Mhm.
but coming down into what we need in Africa. Tell us a bit more about the book.
Yeah, and I think thank you so much for mentioning the book. And I think it also kind of hints to Cade. I think that's how that name is pronounced.
Okay, yo.
Question, yeah. So, because technology adoption in Nigeria is on the rise, which is amazing. I know NITDA is doing a great job at ensuring that technology outside of Nigeria is being brought in. We're doing a lot of work to ensure that we have enough data centers. A lot of the telcos, the MNOs are making sure that everyone has access to internet connection at a reasonable price. There's a lot of work going into that, right? But that means that in for everyone who has an idea, for everyone who thinks, oh yes, I think it would be great for me to solve this problem, typically they would be trying to solve that problem by adapting use cases from outside of the continent. So I may decide that, oh, I want to create a solution that solves this. I will do some research, find out that this solution exists maybe in the Netherlands or wherever, and I'm like, oh, I could literally just replicate and use it for this scenario. That might work, that might not work. Nigeria
Hmm.
is a Africa is an interesting place. Now, if you think about, say, logistics, for instance, Amazon does logistics amazingly well in developed countries. There are great roads. There's no agbero. Agbero is a like a tout. There's no agbero who's stopping you on the road saying, "Why are you here with a truck?" Blah blah blah. How do you explain this to someone who's built Amazon that in Nigeria, if you try to deliver something in a van in a particular kind of location, some aggressive people are going to stop you on the road and tell you you can't go in here unless you pay us XYZ amount. They probably have never heard of that. So this book talks about how realities, so things like low internet bandwidth, low digital literacy, low education literacy as well, how all of these things, all of these nuances go into play when designing products for African users. If we want to design products that people can actually use, then this is the book that's for you. You definitely need to get the book. It's not out yet. We're still writing. I have two co-authors, 𝗨𝗪𝗪𝗪 and 𝗁𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 industry to make sure that this book is, we're calling it the African Usability Bible. A long shot, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's our North Star. So we're really excited for the book to be out, and we're hoping it will be out by early next year.
Okay, early next year, African Usability Bible. I think Amazon was a great example, actually, because I remember when the news came out that they were planning to come to South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. I think that those were the locations.
Mhm.
And I was with the CEO of UPS in Nigeria, and I'd asked them at the time,
Mhm.
"Oh, what do you think about Amazon coming? Are you at all nervous?" And his response, to cut a long story short, was basically, "Let them come." And that was how many years ago? This would have been in beginning of 23, and
Yeah.
Amazon is not yet in Nigeria.
It's always
Probably
a rude
for
awakening.
several reasons. So this has been a great conversation, Iwalola. We're coming to the end of our session. You've shared so many valuable lessons. You're going to share more in your African Usability Bible. So for our folks in the audience, please share the insights, one or two insights that you've taken from today's talk, and one tangible step. We're all about what's our call to action. Talk is cheap. What is the action you're going to take, we're going to take this week to really champion customer excellence within our respective organizations? So with that, Iwalola, thank you so much for being with us and taking an hour out of your day. And I'm sure as more questions come in, you'll see them on LinkedIn, and we'll send them over to you.
Yeah, it
Thanks
was an
again.
awesome time. Thank you. An hour has flown by. Thank you so much.
Great, great. And as we close today's session, we just want to again remind you, if you've been with us before, is that we talked about the scale framework. If we can put up the slide, we've talked about the scale framework. We've talked about it as if it's a roadmap, but really these are individual pillars that play into each other. So you don't need to start with S and then start running through the roadmap. Uh, you start with one area of your business, whether it be strategy, whether it be champion excellence, whether it be leadership, whether it be governance, whether it be impact, and they sort of all interplay with each other. You can assess where you are as a business. We have our scale scorecard. The QR code is on the screen. You can scan that. It's 25 questions, takes 3 minutes. I've timed it, and you'll get a score at the end as to where you are in each of those 5 areas, 5 questions per pillar. And then lastly, we have our book on Amazon. And if you're in Nigeria, also available at Woven Heights, also locally in South Africa. We're trying to bring it to Kenya as well. Afro Optimism Unleashed, that's available on Amazon in your local bookstores, depending where you are. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for this session. Let's stay in touch. Reach out to me and to us on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We'd be happy to hear from you. Happy to add add you to our database, where you can get free insights on a regular basis around what's going on in Africa, and so that we can continue to champion African excellence on the global stage. Thank you very much. My name is Adeolu Adewumi-Zer, and that's a wrap. Thank you.